Today we're going to talk about the fifth wheel hitch. What does the term fifth wheel even mean? How many different styles of fifth wheel hitches are out there? Which is the best one for me? What are the price ranges? We're going to discuss all that and more in this episode, so let's do it. Thanks again for tuning in to the channel. I really do appreciate it. My name is Michael. I am the M in the MK experience. The K is Chris. That's my wife, and our channel discusses all things RV related. So if you haven't subscribed to our channel, we would love for you to subscribe to our channel. So please hit that subscribe button and then tap the notification button. And every time we post a video, you'll receive a notification. And as always, please leave us a big thumbs up. We would greatly appreciate it. That helps RV content like ours get out there in the logarithm. So we're going to talk about fifth wheel hitches, and as you can see behind me there, we have the B&W Companion 25,000 pound fifth wheel hitch, and it's a hitch that I've really grown to love. But before we get to that, I want to discuss a couple fun facts. Are you ready? I got a couple fun facts. So we're talking fifth wheel hitches. So where did that term fifth wheel even come from? Well, there's actually a really cool historical background to the term fifth wheel, because that term has been around way before RVs were even talked about. And it was developed in the 1800s for horse-drawn carriages, and it sat horizontally, and it allowed the front wheels of the carriage to pivot back and forth. So there you go. Fun fact number one. So how about fifth wheels? So when was the first fifth wheel developed and licensed? Well, that happened around in 1929, 1927, in that range, and the company was called Aero Cars of America out of Detroit, Michigan. And the lead designer of that was Glenn Curtis. So boy, if Glenn Curtis was around today to see where fifth wheels were when he started to what's behind me over there, you know, I mean, we're really roughing it nowadays. You know, we actually have residential refrigerators, microwaves, dishwashers, smart TVs. Come on, camping has just evolved into really roughing it. You know what I mean? No, I don't know about you guys, but we call it glamping is what we really do. But thanks to Glenn for developing the fifth wheel, because it's around still to this day, and it's just amazing. So the fifth wheel hitch is really designed so that it can carry a lot of weight. It can carry a lot more weight than, say, that of a ball hitch. And the design of it is so that it sits, as you can see here behind me, over the rear axle. So between the cab and the rear axle, therefore, you know, giving you a much stabler ride. There's a lot more pivoting room that you have with a fifth wheel hitch versus a bumper pull hitch. Okay, so we're going to cover just the basics of what the fifth wheel hitch is and what it does. So the fifth wheel hitch consists of a glide plate, you got the locking jaws, and here you got your release arm. And then what happens is, on the fifth wheel itself, it actually has the kingpin, and you slide underneath and the kingpin locks into place. The beautiful thing about a fifth wheel hitch is that they're designed to carry a much heavier load than that of a ball hitch. And if you've owned a bumper pull right now, you know that for the most part, to me, if you get over 24 feet long, you better have some sway bars, because I bet you a lot of you have noticed, if you've had anything longer than 24 feet, you notice that travel trailer can start to wiggle back and forth. The beautiful thing about a fifth wheel, you don't have to worry about that because a lot of the pin weight is all up here and it's centered on the rear axle. And my first travel trailer that I owned was a bumper pole. It was a Sunset Trail, and I tell you what, 24 feet was about the max. I didn't really have a lot of sway issues, and I didn't have to have sway bars, but I knew that if I went any longer than that I was definitely going to have to get sway bars. So with a fifth wheel hitch, right off the bat, man, I noticed a huge difference of just having that weight centered over the rear axle of the truck. Okay, so what types of fifth wheel hitches are out there? Well, there's actually several. So we're going to start with one that they call a two-way pivoting head, which is back and forth this way. And then they make a fifth wheel hitch that pivots four ways, and that is back and forth and side to side. And then there's a gooseneck hitch, and then there's the sliding hitch, which I've had two of. And then there's the double jaw fifth wheel hitch and the single jaw fifth wheel hitch. And then there's another hitch that's kind of newish, and that is the Anderson hitch. So you may say, well, which one do I need? And a lot of that depends on the size bed of your truck. For instance, if you have a short bed truck, 5 foot, 6 foot, you're going to probably want to look at a sliding hitch, which I've had two of them. I've had the Super Glide pull right hitch, the pluses and minuses of the Super Glide. I don't know that I've ever really got adjusted to the feeling of, you know, when you take off from a stoplight, the surge backwards, and then when you slow down at a stoplight, you feel it surge forward. So when you're, you know, stopping and things of that nature, you're always kind of feeling that surge. However, what they're designed to do is perfect because they're trying to keep, you know, the fifth wheel when you pull away as far back as possible from the cab, so you can get that much more of a turn radius. So what they're designed to do is awesome. Other people also use the Anderson hitch, which I looked into, but the fifth wheel that I had at the time it was too heavy for the Anderson hitch. I'd be curious to know, if you're an Anderson hitch owner, what's your thoughts on it. From what I understand, it acts kind of like a gooseneck. I've heard some people love it. I mean, from what I understand, they're 35 pounds, and you can take them and just pick them up and get them out of your bed and have a clean bed. There's a little bit more to taking apart my B&W companion hitch, although I like it because it's in the puck system. With the slider, more than likely you're going to have rails. There's just a lot more mounting hardware that's involved in the slider hitch. Like I said, if you're a gooseneck or an Anderson hitch owner, I'd like to hear from you and what your thoughts are, you know, pulling a gooseneck. I never have, but from what I understand, a gooseneck kind of does the four-way pivot also, just like this B&W does. And like a lot of hitches, you know, it's your favorite, whatever you like. It's like going and getting a pair of shoes, you know. There's lots of styles to choose from. The prices on fifth wheel hitches can start at $200 and get up probably a little bit above $2,000. So you definitely need to, you know, it's the right hitch. Do you want just a two-way one? You're going to spend more money for a four-way pivot. But I can tell you this, the four-way pivot, you know, really helps with the fifth wheel and on the turns and the corners and the bumps. So I like having the four-way pivot head versus just the two-way pivot head. So you need to figure out what the best fifth wheel hitch is for your scenario. And if you're looking at, you know, purchasing a truck, I've had the short bed F350 single rear wheel truck. I had to get the slider in it. It was my second slider, like I told you, because I owned another short bed truck. And I can tell you, you know, having the F450 with the 8-foot bed, now that I've had an 8-foot bed, I would stick with the 8-foot bed if I'm going to be a fifth wheel owner. I really like having this style fifth wheel hitch over the slider. That's my personal preference. Maybe you love the slider, and that's awesome, but that's just my personal preference. I love having the 8-foot bed now and having a puck system fifth wheel hitch. Okay, so what are some of the top selling fifth wheel hitch brands? So I Googled the top 4 selling fifth wheel brands, and it was pretty consistent with the same brands. It was always Anderson, B&W, Kurt, and Reese were always up there in the top 4 brands. But like I said, you know what? You may find a brand that you like that's not one of those brands that works great for you. So I suggest that you do your homework on what type, and then determine what brand, and then you also need to determine what weights you need for your pin weight as well as your overall gross vehicle weight of your fifth wheel. So how do you determine which fifth wheel hitch that you need? Well, there are several ways that I went about figuring it out back in the day. Number one, your truck bed right off the bat may determine what kind of fifth wheel hitch you need rather quickly. I had 2 Fords. They had the 5.5 foot bed, so that kind of put me with either an Anderson option or a slider. So right off the bat, that kind of really determined from there. It's brand preference and which one you want to get. If you have an 8-foot bed, it kind of opens you up a little bit more to the puck system. But one thing I really say that you really need to be conscious of when you're picking out your fifth wheel hitch is understanding, there again, like in my last video where I talked about the F450, understanding your weights. So what is the gross vehicle weight of the fifth wheel that you're planning on pulling or that you currently pull? Our fifth wheel has a gross vehicle weight rating of 21,000 pounds. That's max that we can put in it. So I purchased a 25,000 pound fifth wheel hitch. So I went above and beyond, because to me it was kind of worth having that. I'd rather have too much hitch than not enough hitch, or kind of cut it close. This is a very important piece in the chain. I mean, when you think about it, this is not a piece where you want to have a failure in. So know your budget, but don't scrimp on your fifth wheel hitch and try to get something that's just going to get you by. Again, the key is safety first, not only for you and your family, but for those around you on the road. So don't scrimp when it comes to that. You can have a budget, kind of have thing in mind, but like I said, this is such an important piece that I would not scrimp. I would spend the money, and I would get something that maybe is over and above just a little bit, just for safety. And I want to talk about this too. If you end up with a slider hitch, more often than not, you are going to have a capture plate that will go on the pin box of your fifth wheel. And I just want to let you know that I had a little bit of an accident with that capture plate. So that's kind of why I want to bring it up. If you get a slider hitch and you have a capture plate, so when the two come together, it helps capture that into the slider. That capture plate goes up and the pin kind of drops through it. That also has to be tightened, and there is an adjustment pin. It's like an Allen wrench that you need to check your capture plate as often. Anytime you go, I would make sure your capture plate is tightened. I actually had one come off. I didn't know it had even come loose till I rounded a corner and I heard a piece of steel drop in the bed of my truck, and I felt the fifth wheel surge ahead, and thank God I was only going around 25 miles an hour. Otherwise I think it would have been worse, and I didn't even know what happened. I just heard a piece of steel drop in the bed of the truck. The fifth wheel surged forward. I pulled over right away, and I looked down, and there was the capture plate in the bed of my truck. So always check your capture plate if you are a person who has a slider hitch. Safety first. I thought it was tight, but I didn't do my due diligence. So the capture plate is something that comes with a slider, something for you to keep in mind. So I just wanted to jump on here and cover the basics of a fifth wheel hitch, what it is, how it operates, the different styles that there are. I hope that helps you some. Like I said, I am not a hitch engineer. I'm not a mechanic guru. I just wanted to share some thoughts with you. Please let me know in the comments below what hitch you have, and do you like it? How has it worked? If you're an Anderson hitch owner, I'd love to hear from you, and let me know what you think of the Anderson hitch. Have any of you ever had any issues with the capture plate and having a slider fifth wheel? I'd be curious to know that too. Thanks again. I do appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to our channel, hit that notification button, and every time we post a video, you will be notified. Leave us that big thumbs up, and with that I say God bless and safe travels.